So I want to repeat this message that I've been trying, my soul has been trying to just say it again and again and again today. And this message is that the mind does not know the path of the soul. The mind does not know the path of the soul. The mind is just one lifetime old. The mind is in one session of your computer being turned on. That is the mind, one session. But on your hard drive is so many sessions of data, of photographs, maybe videos, maybe things you've written, things you like, so many things about your life that you want to keep on your computer because it will be useful for you. Because you intend to use it, you're keeping it on your hard drive. But this one session which your computer is turned on for, maybe a few days or a few weeks old, it does not even know that that information is on your hard drive until you pull it up, until you open some program that works with those files. This session of your computer does not know that that information is there on your hard drive. And those programs that work with different kinds of files, they are identities that we hold and we carry. And you might have opened your computer and you might be using your browser, you might be using your music player, and maybe one or two others, right? But then there are so many other kinds of files. There are PDF files for which you need to use a PDF reader. Then there are ebooks for which you require an ebook reader. And then if you want to work with images, then you need an image editor. For videos, a video editor. There are all these different kinds of programs, right? Those programs are identities, because identity means we work with a certain frequency, a certain range. And you know what? The mind only knows which programs you opened in this session. The mind doesn't even know what all is on the computer and what the computer is capable of. I know a lot of people who will have a computer and they've had their computer for years, for decades even, and all they ever used was the browser in all those years. But if you take somebody who works with a computer, who actually does work with a computer, you'll find that they use Microsoft Word, they use Excel, they use image editing software, and if you go towards programmers, then they use various compilers, editors, and all of that. And you see, you can go decades without knowing that your computer can do all these things. You really had no idea. And you know what? That's what's with our soul. Our soul is like the hard drive. Our body is like this computer. We have all these options and we have all this information stored. But our mind is just this one session. And this mind, it doesn't have a clue of what else is there until we open it. And those programs on there which are open on the computer, we think that's it. What this program works with, that's what we can do. That's what we think. We don't know that if we open a different program, we can do different things that we never could before. We can edit an image with a program. We can make an Excel spreadsheet and we can record stuff. We can make videos, we can record songs, we can record our voice. All these are running different apps, different programs, apps. All this is there, but we don't know. And that's how our identity is of the mind. And let me tell you, today I've been thinking, like, it's been just coming to me like waves upon waves upon waves of how in the days before I knew my birth identity, I believed that I was a certain person and an identity. I believed that I was somebody from the area that I grew up in. I thought that was me. That was it. And the people that were around me, who were the fake family, by the way, I thought that was it. That was me. And there were many, many, many things that in my deep and my secret heart I wanted to do. But I always felt that, like, it wasn't even in my conscious mind. You know what I mean? I didn't even know that I wanted to do those things. I didn't even know, because in my subconscious mind was filtering already what I thought I could do and what I thought I couldn't do. This is very serious stuff, because it's something as simple, right, as traveling to go and see something beautiful that I wanted to see. For example, I really love sculpture and art. I do. The background in which I grew up in, that is not an option for women. The background in which I grew up in, right, as a woman, right, art and sculpture are things that you should see if they come on television, right, in between the programs that other people watch. Not even a program about art and sculpture. Not even that. That is something just simply not in the range of frequency of the women who were around when I grew up. What women did, right, in that background was that you learn to cook, you learn to keep a good house, and you learn to just please your husband, right? And you learn to look after children, and you learn to look after the old people, and there's nothing wrong with that. And personally, I like that. I love that. And I didn't get much of a chance of that in my life. But that is something that would still be my first choice. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But I did always want to go and see sculpture and travel. Right? It was there in my heart. It never came into my conscious mind. It never came into my conscious mind. It was only when I found out my true birth identity, right, that this thing even entered my conscious mind. It was because when my identity expanded from that which I grew up with, right, these things that I was blocking, they came into my mind. And my God, the joy I got, the spiritual advancement I experienced when I started traveling to see sculpture, to see art, the way my heart expanded. My heart died in the previous identity. Died. D-I-E-D, died. I had 2 heart attacks on the same day because I could not grow anymore in that previous identity. And you know what? Maybe that is why humans ever die. Because we reach the end of the mental identity. We reach the end of it. Eternity is only for the soul. Eternity is only for those who are living by their soul. Eternity is for those who can let go of their mind identity and expand into their soul identity. That is where eternity is, in the soul. The mind is one session. And now I have lived many sessions in my life. And you know what? The subconscious is already filtering out stuff. Your subconscious is saying no to things that you desire and to things that you need for you to go on in life. That you need. You're short circuiting because your mental identity is not allowing you to work with that kind of file that you want to work with, that frequency. Because your mental identity is saying that this identity doesn't work with that frequency. And you know what? I was thinking, remembering today, this was just, I wasn't remembering, it's just like waves coming over me, right? Of past life memories, other life memories, because they're all happening right now. And I wanted to tell you a particular one that that caused me a lot of shame once upon a time. And you know what? When I had these other life memories which I liked, right? I put them in my book, Ed's Past Lives. And the ones which I didn't like, which were traumatic, I left out of the book. And this particular one I didn't like so much that I told myself, see, listen, this is all bullshit, okay? This is all bullshit. This past life thing, it's some kind of game the mind plays, and you're in some kind of weird trip right now. That's why you had this memory. But it was as compelling, clear, emotionally clear. Everything smells, everything 100% clear as any other past life memory I had. And I could say this was one of my most clear and vivid memories. And some of my most clear and vivid memories, right? I would say, in general, 99% of all memories I've had, they never came when I was meditating. They all came when I was doing stuff around the house, like cooking, cleaning, washing, all these things. Because I'm not allowed to meditate. I am literally actually not allowed, because if I close my eyes for more than 30 or 40 seconds, the ritual doers watching me will immediately disturb me. They will force me to open my eyes, and if I don't, they will attack Gabriel, so then I will have to respond. So I can't meditate. So all these memories, right, they come while I'm doing other stuff. And sometimes even when I'm out walking, I'm in the bazaar, I'm buying stuff. It's like that. It just like the soul just opens up, right? And something from a completely, different state comes in. And let me tell you about this one that was very mortifying for me, which I never understood. And I was like, what the hell, like, why do I even have to remember? Why did I even remember it? And only today I understand. I'll tell you what, this memory was of me when I was 9 or 10, right? I had been, I was an orphan who was let go from many houses. And I don't remember for what I was let go. But I was sent from the orphanage to a farm that had requested for people to come and work in an emergency, because something had happened to their workers and they needed someone to come in an emergency to help out. And so this orphanage had sent me and said that I would be able to do the work. I was 10 years old. So I came there, and the work, right, was to clean this huge pig pen. There were like hundreds, I would say 400 or 500 pigs in this big pen. They would come there for the night, and they would stay there the whole night, and then they would be taken out to the pasture in the daytime. But they would come there in the night. In the evening, they would come there. In the evening, from about just before sunset till sunrise the next day. and they would shit in that pen. Hundreds of pigs would shit in that pen. And my job was to clean the shit of those pigs. And this is a huge pig pen, okay? And I was the only one. And I did it, and I did a good job. So I was doing that work for maybe I was doing for maybe 3 or 4 days when the owner of that whole huge big farm, he came to the staff quarters, the place where the dining table, there was this huge hall, right, with dining tables, and this is where all the people who worked on the farm would come to eat. So he came there and he made a speech, and then he went, like he walked up and down the aisles, just like looking at people, shaking hands, and like nodding at people and that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe it was some sort of motivational stuff. And I was in huge terror of this person. And then this person came in front of me, he stood in front of me, and I remember the boots, and that's all I remember. And he asked, so, what, who is she? And they said that she's an orphan that we just got temporarily. And he said, keep her on permanently. And that person said, but, he said, but something, 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 something. But this man, the head farmer, he said, no, keep her on. And what happened was that I felt immense love for this man who said, keep her on. Because I was never kept on anywhere. I was never kept on anywhere. But I felt immense love for him in that moment. I was 10 years old, but I fell in love with this grown man. I don't know the age or whatever. He's a grown man. And I fell in love with him. I didn't know that I was in love with him like that. I just thought that I loved this man because he kept me on. I had absolutely nothing to recommend me being there. But he said, keep her on. And what I remember is that the entire day of every day of my life, I was bending over, cleaning the shit out of the pig pen. Every day of my life. And there was one day, when, wait, listen. So every day I was cleaning out, right, this pig pen, and around sunset, right, as the sun would set, and the pigs would come back into the pen, and my cleaning would be finished, right, I would look up from where I worked. And this was the only time in hours, right, that I would have straightened my back, because I would have actually been sweeping that pen the whole day because it was so big and there was that much shit. I would turn up and I would look across a courtyard, right? I would look at the chambers where the owner of the farm lived. He would have a fire going on in his room. It was on the first floor where he lived, his room, and you could see the firelight from the window. So as sunset, right, that would be the light that was visible first. His fire would be on first. So I would look there and I would feel such love for the food that I had been provided. And I do not remember was I paid anything or not. I was completely uneducated. I had one thing in my life. I just had one thing in my life, and it was that I loved that man. That's it. I didn't know his face. I didn't know his name. I didn't know anything about him. I'd never looked at him. But I would look at that light of his window as I finished my work for the evening, and my being would flood. My being would flood with the love of God. because that man loved me like it was the love of God that he had said, keep her on permanently. And I would just look at that fire and I would be filled with love. And then I would go back to my quarters and eat and sleep. That was my life. I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. Nobody would speak to somebody that smelt of shit, because that is what I did every day. I smelt of shit. That was me. That was what I did. That was my identity. That was it. That was my identity. The pig shit cleaner was my identity. I became hunched over at a very young age, unable to actually turn up straight anymore because my job involved bending over. So I reached a point when I could not straighten up anymore. And then a day came when I was maybe in my 40s or 50s, right? I didn't know my age, so I only know that this was after I was permanently hunched over. A day came when I looked in the evening at that fire from his room, and something happened to me. Something happened, an instinct took over, and something happened to me. Instead of going back to the dining hall and going back to my quarters for my usual routine, I ran towards his room, and I ran into that building, and I ran up the stairs. There were back stairs that went straight to his room there. I don't know how. I was just led by instinct. And I ran and I burst in through the door. I just burst in through the door. And there was an empty room. And then I burst in through the next door, and there was an empty room. And then the third room was where he was sitting. And he was sitting on a chair there with his head in his hands. And he looked up at me as I ran in. And he was sitting down, he looked up at me. And it was a wordless moment, but it was a moment of complete love. And he just said one thing to me. He said, "Be mine. Be mine," he said, "be mine." He understood what he was saying, and I understood what he was saying, that he loved me as I loved him, and that it was impossible to deny this love, as utterly ridiculous as it was. There was no other love that could replace what we felt for each other, and there was nothing that could be done about it. He was telling me all that. His face was full of fire. So he said, "Be mine." And he stretched his hand out to me. He said, "Be mine." And you know what? I said no. I shook my head. I said, "I cannot." I shook my head because I would never spoil his beautiful life with my shit smell. And he said, "You're the only one for me. You're the only one. If you go now, I'll be alone until the day I die, because you're the only one." And you know what? I looked at him. I loved him, but I couldn't come out of my identity. And I turned and I left. And I had the horrible, horrible memory in this lifetime of decades more, of cleaning the pig pen every day, and looking at the light in his room. He waited for me. He waited and waited and waited. He never married. He waited for me, and I couldn't come out of my identity to love him back, though there was nothing else in me but love for him. Nothing. There was nothing else for me. Nothing in my mind, nothing in my soul, nothing in my day. Absolutely nothing but loving him. But I couldn't go to him. And then I remembered the day that he died. I knew he died because I also died the same day. And I have this memory that he was sitting in a wheelchair near the garden. There was this place where there was the rose garden, and there was a place where there was the wheelchair could wheel in between, like winding little grass paths in between patches of roses. So he had been put out there for, maybe to get the sunlight. He was very old, and I had left my body. And when I left my body, right, I was like a 10-year-old girl again, like my astral manifestation. I felt like a 10-year-old girl again. And I went running, like I left my body and I went running into the garden looking for him. And I went running in through those winding paths, and then I came to where he was. And he was very white, like ashen. His hair was white. He was wearing white also. I think there was just white, ashen white. And he was there. His head was down, like his head was kind of fallen on his chest. And he raised his head up very, very slowly. And he said, "Is it you? Have you finally come to me?" And I was now in a 10-year-old girl's body, and I was like upright. For the first time in decades, I was standing upright. For the first time in decades, I was standing upright. And I went to him and I took his hand, and he looked up at me and he smiled. I can never forget the smile he gave me, that finally you came to me. And that's what I could remember. And this is just one of many other lives, memories I've had, where I blocked my joy and my happiness because I was locked into an identity that I couldn't come out of. I understood this today, that we do nobody no favors by being loyal to some bullshit. What the fuck are all these things about, your, I don't want to say, the different things that we have, but this stuff about our profession, even our looks, our race, all these things about our life are such crap. Everything can change for love. Everything should change for love. We should all move towards our love fearlessly. Look at the animals. They will go wherever the hell they want because it suits them. They're not bothered about, oh, I'm a this, therefore I should be here. There was just a joke online today on Instagram. They were like, the common house spider, the name of this spider is the house spider. And they showed this house spider and said, 134 million years ago, the common house spider was wondering, where do I belong? What is a house? Because houses were not invented, till humans came along and built houses, right? So that means, but you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? We put ourselves into all these brackets, And we don't actually realize how these identities we carry, right? How they are filtering stuff out in our subconscious. I wanted to do so many things I didn't even know that I wanted to do, and which now I know are an irreplaceable part of me, because nothing can give me that much joy. Nothing can give me that much joy. So I just want to say that one way, right, that we can really break out of these mental identities, and this is why Thug World has defamed reincarnation, because they can't control us and lock our energy into an identity. If we start believing that we are more than who we are in this reality, this session, this mind session, which is this particular dream we're having of this particular lifetime. And you know what? I mean, literally, our energy is actually manifesting in other times as well. And because of that, we get this highway of, transfer of information, transfer of abilities. These little kids, 4 and 5 years old, suddenly they're a piano prodigy. How are they a piano prodigy? Because that energy connection is there between them of that age and them of other times. They're little children, right? So they don't know, their mental identity has not restricted them in this lifetime yet. So that's why little kids, they know, like Gabriel spoke languages, different languages. He spoke different languages. He used to do different kinds of dance that are like dances of cultures very far from here, which we never saw on television or anything. So little children, right, their identity is not yet restricted. So they speak all these languages, sing these songs, and I'm talking about the souls, not these fake soulless zombie motherfucker, demon kids. They don't know anything. They never do. I've brought many of them up. I mean, I'm not brought them up, but I've been there, for them and looked after them and stuff. So I know what I'm talking about. But you see our mental identity, right? The Thug World has defamed reincarnation. They have run show upon show on television for decades, saying, is reincarnation real? There might be something to it, but we couldn't find proof. Excuse me, how did I, on the internet, how did I find photographs of past lives, of me and of the man that I love and our children and his parents? And it, seriously, I didn't even pay, I didn't even have money like to pay and buy those old archive books or pay for library memberships or something. This was all free stuff on the internet that I found. Just me on like completely like dud internet connection. Reincarnation, other life manifestations of the soul are real. You're not just the person you think you are in this lifetime. You're not just that race. You're not just the child of those parents. You're not. You are right now in other times. Right now, this second, you are in other times. And you got skills there that can help you here. You got knowledge. You got spiritual revelation and spiritual muscle. And you have connections. And you have love. You have love. You have friends. You have emotional support. You have all this in other times which are restricted here, but that love is coming through, that energy is coming through, and you want to do stuff here. Your soul wants something. You might not even know what it is, because your identity is filtering it. Like my identity was filtering out that I want to travel and see sculpture. My mind identity was filtering out all the stuff that I wanted to do, which today are the basis of my life. All of this was impossible in my previous identity. All of this, all of my life. Loving a man, that was outside. I was just going to grow up and just, have an arranged marriage and fake love, pretend love, whoever it is I was married to. I was going to be his slave for life. That's simple. That was it, and my life is totally different now. And there is more. That is what God is saying. There is more. You're not able, your mind is not able to comprehend it because your identity is restricted. Just open your mind, and I don't know, maybe ask God, maybe ask the Holy Spirit, or do your meditation. Just intend for your soul to expand to your eternal self and not be any more restricted to what your mind believes you are, because there is more. You're desiring something that is outside the frequency of your mind identity right now. You're desiring it, you're calling it, and it's requiring you to expand into your soul identity.